Your phone rings. It's your boss. And before you even answer, your stomach already dropped. Not because you did anything wrong. Not because there's any actual reason to worry. Just because a small, automatic voice in your head already decided, this is bad news. You haven't even said hello yet. And you're already 3 steps into an imaginary conversation where you get fired. Sound familiar? Maybe it's not a phone call. Maybe it's a doctor's office running 5 minutes late, and suddenly you're convinced it's something serious. Maybe it's a friend who hasn't texted back, and you're already rehearsing what you'll say when they tell you they're upset with you. Here's the strange part. 9 times out of 10, none of it happens. The boss just wanted to ask about a file. The doctor was just running behind schedule. Your friend was just in the shower, but your brain doesn't remember it that way. It doesn't file away all those times the worst case scenario didn't happen. It just moves on to the next moment, waiting for the next reason to assume disaster. And it's not just phone calls. It's the pause before opening an email with an urgent-sounding subject line. It's the silence after you send a message and don't hear back right away. It's the look on someone's face that you read as disappointment, when really they were just thinking about something else entirely. Your mind doesn't wait for confirmation. It jumps straight to the worst version of the story and starts reacting to it as if it's already true. So why does your mind do this? Why does it default to the worst possible outcome, almost automatically, every single time? That's exactly what we're breaking down today. Not with vague advice to just think positive, but with the real psychology behind why your brain works this way, and what it's actually trying to do for you. Let's get into it. This isn't pessimism. It's a prediction machine doing its job badly. Here's the first thing to understand. Expecting the worst isn't really about being negative as a personality trait. It's about prediction. Your brain is, at its core, a prediction machine. Its entire job is to guess what's about to happen so it can prepare you for it. And when it comes to survival, there's a very old, very simple rule your brain follows. It's safer to predict danger and be wrong than to predict safety and be wrong. Think about it from an evolutionary angle. If your ancestor heard a rustle in the grass and assumed it was just wind, but it turned out to be a predator, that mistake could be fatal. If they assumed it was a predator and it turned out to just be wind, they wasted a few seconds of alertness. One mistake costs nothing. The other costs everything. So your brain evolved to lean toward the worst case guess every time, just in case. It's not trying to make you miserable. It's trying to keep you alive using the cheapest possible insurance policy. Assume danger first, downgrade later if it turns out to be fine. This kind of thinking is sometimes called the smoke detector principle. A smoke detector is deliberately built to be oversensitive. It would rather go off 100 times for burnt toast than miss one real fire. Your brain runs on the same logic. 100 false alarms about texts and phone calls are, from a purely evolutionary standpoint, an acceptable price to pay for never missing one real threat. The problem is, this system was built for genuine physical threats, not modern, mostly harmless uncertainty. A missed text isn't a predator in the grass. But your prediction machine doesn't know that difference. It just knows. Uncertain situation, unknown outcome. Better assume the worst. This is why the feeling shows up so fast, before you've even had time to think it through logically. It's not a conscious decision to be negative. It's a reflex, firing before your rational mind even gets a chance to weigh in. By the time you consciously notice the thought, this is going to go badly, your body has often already started reacting to it. Tense shoulders, a tight chest, a racing pulse, as if the bad outcome were already confirmed. Reason 1. Your brain weighs bad news heavier than good news. There's a well-documented pattern in psychology called negativity bias. In simple terms, it means your brain reacts more strongly to negative information than to positive information of the same size. One piece of criticism can outweigh 10 pieces of praise in how it feels. One moment of bad news can overshadow an entire day of things going right. This isn't a personal flaw. It's a documented tendency in how human brains process information, likely because, again, negative events historically carried higher survival stakes than positive ones. This is part of why expecting the worst feels almost automatic. Your brain isn't neutrally weighing good outcome against bad outcome. It's already tilted the scale before you even start thinking, giving the bad outcome more emotional weight simply because it's bad. So when you imagine how that phone call might go, the negative version of the story doesn't just feel equally likely. It feels heavier, more real, more worth preparing for, even when the actual odds don't support that at all. Picture receiving 5 compliments on a piece of work and 1 small piece of criticism. Most people, if asked what they remember most vividly an hour later, will describe the criticism in detail and barely recall the praise at all. That's not a coincidence, and it's not a personal weakness. It's negativity bias doing exactly what it evolved to do, just in a context where it isn't actually helping you anymore. Reason 2. If you expect the worst, you can never be blindsided. Here's a quieter reason, one that lives underneath the surface for a lot of people. If you expect the worst and it happens, you feel like you saw it coming. There's a strange, small comfort in that. You don't feel caught off guard. You feel, in some odd way, prepared. But if you expect the worst and it doesn't happen, there's relief instead of disappointment. Either way, expecting the worst protects you from one specific kind of pain, the pain of being blindsided by something you didn't see coming. This is sometimes called defensive pessimism. It's not really pessimism as a worldview. It's a coping strategy, a way of preloading disappointment so that if it comes, it doesn't hit as hard, and if it doesn't come, you get a small bonus of relief instead of a normal, neutral outcome. You can often spot this pattern by how someone talks before an uncertain event. Instead of saying, "I think this will go fine," they'll say, "I'm sure this is going to go badly," almost as a form of protection, as if saying it out loud somehow softens the blow if it turns out to be true. The catch is that this strategy has a cost. You pay the emotional price of the worst-case scenario in advance, every single time, whether or not it ever actually happens, over months and years. That adds up to a lot of suffering for outcomes that, most of the time, never even occurred. If you added up every minute you've spent bracing for something that never actually happened, it would likely be a staggering number, far more time than you've ever spent dealing with the actual bad outcomes themselves. That's the quiet, invisible tax-defensive pessimism charges, one you rarely notice because it feels like caution rather than cost. Reason 3. Once something bad actually happened, your brain took notes. For a lot of people, this pattern isn't random. It traces back to a specific memory, or a series of them. Maybe there was a time you didn't see something coming, and it hurt badly. A relationship that ended without warning. A job loss you didn't expect. A piece of news that blindsided you completely. In moments like that, your brain doesn't just experience the pain. It learns a lesson from it. Don't get caught off guard like that again. From that point forward, part of your mind starts scanning constantly for warning signs, trying to predict the next blindside before it happens. Expecting the worst becomes a kind of insurance policy against reliving that specific pain. The problem is, this insurance policy charges you constantly, even when there's no real threat on the horizon. Your brain doesn't distinguish between "this situation resembles the one that hurt me before," and "this situation is actually dangerous." It just fires the same warning system either way. This is why, too, people can go through the exact same neutral situation, a delayed reply, a serious tone in someone's voice, and react completely differently. It's rarely about the situation itself. It's about what that situation has come to represent, based on what's already happened to each of them before. The real cost of always expecting the worst. Let's be honest about what this pattern actually costs you. It steals your present moments. If you're constantly bracing for what might go wrong, you're rarely fully present for what's actually happening right now, which, most of the time, is completely fine. It also exhausts you in a very literal physical way. Constantly anticipating danger keeps your body in a low-grade state of tension, even during calm, ordinary moments. Over time, this contributes to fatigue, restlessness, and difficulty truly relaxing, even when nothing is wrong. And there's a subtler cost too. When you expect the worst so consistently, you sometimes miss the quiet, ordinary evidence that things are actually going okay, because your attention is always scanning ahead for the next problem, instead of noticing the present one isn't happening. There's also a relational cost that's easy to overlook. Constantly bracing for the worst can make you quicker to react defensively, quicker to assume someone's upset with you, quicker to prepare for conflict that was never actually coming. Over time, the people around you may notice this tension, even if you never say a word about it out loud, simply because you're rarely fully relaxed around them. How to actually work with this pattern? Let's shift from understanding this to gently working with it. First, name the prediction as a prediction, not a fact. When you notice yourself assuming the worst, try saying internally, "This is my brain's prediction, not confirmed information." This small shift creates distance between the thought and your identity. It's not, "This is definitely happening." It's, "My mind is guessing," and it usually guesses towards danger. Second, ask what the actual evidence says, not just what feels true. Worst case thinking feels urgent and convincing, but it rarely rests on real evidence. Ask yourself, what specifically happened so far that supports this outcome? Usually, the honest answer is almost nothing. You're reacting to a gap in information, not to an actual signal. Third, track your predictions against reality. For 1 week, notice every time you predict a bad outcome, and briefly note what actually happened. Most people are shocked at how rarely the worst-case version comes true. Seeing this pattern in writing, rather than just believing it in theory, retrains your brain far faster than simply trying to think positive. Fourth, let yourself feel the relief when things turn out fine. Instead of rushing past it, a lot of people, once they realize the worst didn't happen, immediately move on to the next worry instead of actually registering the relief. Pause for a moment when things go okay. Let your nervous system register that the danger you braced for didn't arrive. This is how your brain slowly updates its default settings. Here's what that might look like in practice. Your boss calls, and instead of firing you, they simply ask a quick question about a file. In the past, you might have felt a flash of relief and then immediately moved on, already scanning for the next thing to worry about. This time, pause for just a few seconds afterward. Notice consciously, I braced for something bad and it didn't happen. Let that register fully before moving on. Repeated enough times, this small pause is what teaches your nervous system that most uncertain moments really do. Resolve just fine. The real goal, here's what I want you to take from all of this. The goal was never to become someone who assumes everything will go perfectly. That's not realistic, and it's not the point. The goal is to stop automatically handing every uncertain moment over to your worst-case imagination before you even have real information. Your brain built this habit trying to protect you. It's not broken. It's just running an old strategy that made sense once and doesn't need to run quite so constantly anymore. Imagine what it would feel like to hear your phone ring and simply answer it without your stomach dropping first. To wait for a reply without rehearsing an apology for something you haven't even done. That version of you isn't a fantasy. It's just a nervous system that's slowly learned through repeated evidence that not every uncertain moment is a warning sign. If this gave you a new way to understand your own mind, that's exactly why this channel exists. Subscribe, because we're going to keep breaking down the quiet patterns that shape how you think, one honest video at a time. I'll see you in the next one.